Hello, welcome to Fempreneur True Confessions podcast.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura, owner of ODAA, and we are a small boutique style virtual assistant and business management agency where we're here to help you behind the scenes. It's summer, go take a vacation, let some things get handled, take off all the hats in your business, and really just be able to learn to love your business while delegating out the work that you don't necessarily love so much. So that's what ODA is.
Awesome. And then I'm Angelique with Lady Powerhouse Solutions, and we do heart-centered project management. And most of the project management we do is marketing related. Not all of it, but most of it. And Laura and I are the co-hosts here of Fempreneur True Confessions. Yeah, that's about it.
Wonderful. So together we are Fempreneur True Confessions podcast, as Angelica is saying. And here for this podcast, our mission is to empower women in business, as well as in life, to live authentically and support each other. Hence, Angelique and I, we do a lot of the same things. Some things we don't do. I'm not big on marketing in our agency, so it makes it a whole lot of sense. But even though we could be considered direct competition, we live in an abundant mindset, and we're not. We're here to support each other. I'm super excited when she is succeeding, she's going along. I'm here to help with the down points, here in the high points. So
Yeah.
we wanna normalize and live authentically in that idea of we don't need to be competition. As women, we can be supportive, we can be loving. There's enough for everyone. Let's pull together and be that for each other. Don't compete, but live with each other and work with each other in this.
And model what it looks like when women support each other. Model what it looks like when we lift other women up. Model what it looks like to have an abundance mindset about a situation. And, like Laura said, I get super excited when Laura has a good day. And what I have found really interesting is we don't have good days every day, right?
No.
And,
no.
and on the bad, when she's having a bad day, I can help lift her up. And when I'm having a bad day, she helps lift me up. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of what we want other women to see and be encouraged by. And I'm really, really, really excited about today's guest.
Absolutely. So here we have Christy. Zawodniak, right?
There you go.
Now let's see how much of the rest of this I can read properly. But Christy here started quilting in 2009 and has since taken countless courses in local shops and national quilting shows. In July 2016, she and her husband completed the renovation of her in-home studio and welcomed the arrival of Miss Rosie, her Gamma long arm
machine, yes.
Okay, with Statler Stitcher. And then once she managed to learn the ins and outs of the Gamma machine, she began quilting for the public. In July 2018, she became a certified instructor for Studio 180 Design. And since becoming a certified instructor, her business has expanded to include teaching monthly at Tucker University classes and several speaking engagements. In 2019, she left a 20-year career in the defense industry to go in with her quilting, to go all in with her quilting business. The following year, that's right, 2020, she moved to Cottage Grove Quilt Company into a retail space. Good God, here we go. Into a retail space. So CGQC is not only a local brick and mortar quilt shop, but also an online quilting store with tons of resources hold on, I lost my place. There we go. And weekly tutorials. She built a highly engaged Facebook community with weekly Facebook live sales, several block of the month programs, and online classes. She recently decided to move the business entirely online and move from Missouri to Louisiana. We are eager to hear Christy's Fempreneur true confessions and lessons learned over her several years.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Laura and Angelique, for the invitation.
Thank you.
I got to work with Christy, and it was so much fun. She's one sharp lady. She gave me a run for my money.
Only on Tuesdays.
Yeah. But Christy reached out because she was trying to increase her engagement and, in turn create conversion and sales, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by running Facebook ads and increasing her social media presence and all that stuff. So we saw up to a 400 and some odd % increase at one point in Christy's engagement on social media. But she also had some great sales.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was a pleasure working with her, and she's moving into a different phase, and I'm excited for her to share her story. So, I don't think there's like a bad place to start with your story. So I don't know if you want to start at the beginning, if you want to talk about like what is it? Hindsight's 2020.
Yes, hindsight is always 2020. When I started my business in 2016 out of my basement, it was very different. It was very small. It was very local driven, as far as people would bring me their quilts for me to long arm quilt for them. And if you don't understand what that is, that's okay. But I was providing a service to them, and I would get paid to provide the service, much like, you would for any other professional services. It was a service-driven business. And then I would travel and teach, and again, providing a service. And when I would teach, I'd just sell a few things here and there on the retail side. So it was a very easy business, quite honestly. And I enjoyed it. And oddly enough, I did pretty well as far as income generating in that regard. And then I thought, the big joy would be is to run my own retail store and run my own retail fabric store, because I imagined in my little simple mind that it would be just play fabric all day with my friends, and we would just have a really great time. Well, little did I know that really came with real big business problems, real big tax problems, real big life problems. What ended up happening is I took my hobby and tried to turn it into my business, and got to where I didn't enjoy my hobby. And we hear that a lot with people.
Yeah, I think that is a common, challenge.
Their hobby and turn it into a business. And then they realize that running a business is really running a business. And then they get to where they don't like their hobby anymore. And it just, had I stopped and taken inventory there where I was, I would have realized I was very happy in that early small bucket, and I didn't need to try to go do that bigger bucket, which, I have now discovered that. And once we get moved and settled, as we continue our discussion, you'll realize that I'm going back to that little small model at some point down the road after I take a little time for myself and heal.
Yeah.
It's been a hard journey. So when I started my business, my husband and I worked professional in corporate world for years. We had resources. We did. And I specifically had resources from the years that I had saved money and put it away. And it was resources that with my resource bucket, we weren't planning that into our long-term future. So we decided to take a risk with those resources. And I'm going to stop here and say, if anybody else has that bright idea, don't. Okay.
I love it.
And the reason why is because, first off, there's tax implications. If you take those resources out, like in my case, it was a 401k. I was not 59 and a half when I withdrew it. And so I had to pay a tax burden, a penalty for early withdrawal, and a tax penalty. Okay, so that's a double whammy. So you walk away losing a third before you even get started. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a huge thing. You can take that that capital and use it as collateral, but you don't have to use it. Okay.
Right.
So, using it as collateral means you still have it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different way to think of it. Also, I think as a business owner, if I was to sit down with somebody who was wanting to start their own business today and they said to me, well, what would you do different? And, how would you set it up now if you had to start it over? First off, I would never use my own money unless I would use a small portion of it. I would say I wouldn't use all of it. I'd say limit myself to a percentage that I'm comfortable with losing. Okay. And if you're not comfortable losing 5%, then that needs to show you a red flag. But if you're comfortable with saying losing 10 or 15 or even 25%, then that's the amount you need to work within. That needs to be your parameter. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because none of us know the future. And then one of the big things I would set myself up to where I would never go into debt. And a lot of people use debt because we're always taught debt can, you want to build your credit score, you want to do this, you want to use debt. And I'm here to tell you, there's lots of people out there that'll give you money if you ask. But it comes, you might as well go and borrow from a loan shark. You get about the same interest rates. So you can ask me how I know.
Yes.
Me how I know this. So, here's what I, would tell people is you got to do this in such a way that you're only paying cash. And if you can't pay for it in cash when it walks through the door, then you don't need it, or you have to do something different. So in my case, I went out and bought a building. Well, of course, that's a mortgage. Okay. I should have stopped right then and there and not bought a building, and I should have rented. Okay. And what you want to do is, or even worked it out of my basement. I had plenty of room in my basement to expand. I did not have to go and rent a space or buy a building. But, I was always had in my mind, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to have a Main Street brick and mortar store. That's what everybody else does. You don't have to be everybody else.
Right. Yeah.
So, you can be different. And so I did. And that building came with lots of big problems. And I don't mean like it needed a new paint job. I mean, like my husband and the contractor had to redo the trusses between the first floor and the second floor because they were separating. We had to there's 3 new roofs on that building. And I'm hoping that I can sell the building before I have to replace my 3rd air conditioner in it.
Yeah, because it's a building in a historical.
It's a historical
area of town.
It's an historical area of town. It's an old building. It was built in 1860.
The
first building was built around the 1860s, 1870s. The second building was built in the early 1900s. The third building was still early 1900s, but not as early. So, it's got lots of problems, that just take a lot of money and a lot of work to shore it up. And
stress.
And I was fortunate that my husband could do most of the work. But still, all of that work cost money. And and then you're having to spend your capital, in my case, it was my money, but still it was my capital. And, keep trying to get this ready to go so we could open up this grand adventure. And we didn't need to do that. Just didn't need to do it. The other thing I would tell people is to really take a step back and identify for you what works best and what you like. So here's one of the things I learned. While I love playing quilty with my friends, I don't like retail. I just don't. I don't. I don't like shopping. I don't go to the mall. I don't like shopping. My version of shopping is sitting in the bathroom with my phone and shopping on Amazon. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. So that should be a clue right there that I didn't need to do this. If I'm not a retail person, I don't need to create a retail business. I don't like being constantly interrupted, whether it's by my employees, whether it's by customers. I don't like that. I get really, really grouchy. And when you're in that type of environment, and somebody walks into your store, even if you are secluded in your office and they come in and they want their question answered right then and there, You can't tell your customer, well, I'm busy planning the next 6 months of my life so I can support your habit. You have to jump up and meet their need, because they came in, by God, and they got an itch that needs scratching.
Yeah.
And so-
And you want to provide, even though you may not like retail, you still want to provide a good service.
You still want to provide an excellent service. And we were and are well known for our customer service. Just because I was adamant about that. One of the books that I read when starting this was the book on Zappos and how they do their customer service. It's an amazing book. It's just really, customer service is key, but to provide that level of customer service takes a lot of energy. It does. And if you're not willing to do that every day and you get frustrated by it, then you need to take a pause. So the work-life balance and what it is you like. So for me, I didn't like the retail side of it. And also the other piece of it is work-life balance. As this started to unfold, I started to work 6 and 7 days a week, anywhere from 10-hour days. And I was not making, when I left the corporate world, I was making over 6 figures. And I went from making over 6 figures to now I'm working for myself and I'm barely bringing home $1,000 a month. And I'm working harder than I ever have on any project that I ever did. And it was really eye-opening to me, because while I enjoyed the work and I enjoyed the value that it was giving me in some aspects, when I wasn't getting compensated even enough to pay the groceries and the car payment, it's a real eye-opener as to why am I doing this? If I'm working 6 and 7 days a week, and when it comes to paying for the groceries and the car payments, I can't do that on what I'm bringing home, then why am I doing this? And the saddest part of all was I could have gone and worked at McDonald's and made more money. And, when you start to step back from the chaos of running your own business and you start seeing those things, you have to really ask yourself, am I doing it for the right, why am I doing this? Why is this important? And
that happens in the entrepreneurial journey.
It does.
For almost everyone. And it depends on when it happens. But that's one of the topics that we talk about pretty consistently on here, or that come up consistently, is knowing that your business is an evolution. It is not going to be, this is the way it is and this is the way it's always going to be. Your business will change, and it will grow, and it will evolve, Sorry, forgot to mute my phone. It's gone crazy. Okay. What else? Okay. So the next thing is I like to talk a lot about money, because unfortunately, while it's a wonderful thing to build everybody up and to be cheerleaders and champions for one another, at the end of the day, it's all about the money, because you have to pay the bills. And so when I started doing my business, when I ran out of my own personal capital, which happened a lot quicker than I thought it would, we opened the doors February 14th of 2020. And I always jokingly say 5 weeks later, the world ran out of toilet paper and beer because COVID hit, and suddenly the model I had didn't work. And the model that I had is I would purchase goods and products on what's called terms. All the suppliers want to give you terms, and that way they can get their products into the store, and then you owe them money. And those terms are either 30-day, 60-day, or 90-day. It just depends on the supplier. And here's what's interesting about the terms that I experience. Everybody has a different experience. This is my experience. Those terms did not have a credit limit. So they didn't. Laura.
No.
You guys, if you're not watching and you're listening, Laura's face, her mouth just fell open.
As long as I was paying something, they kept sending me stuff. No. I am not joking. So, I kept up for as long as I can, and I started getting behind with the suppliers because I was getting stuff in, but I wasn't selling it fast enough to get things going. So I had that churn happening. Now here I'm going to throw you another curveball. This is the other churn that happened. due to the COVID restrictions and the way goods and services are handled within the global economy, all of the products that I sold came from out of the US markets, which meant, does anybody remember seeing those videos of the shipping container saga in LA Harbor?
Yeah.
So I would order goods, and they would say to me on the order sheet, okay, well, this is what you've ordered. It should arrive in June. Okay, got it. I can plan for that. This should arrive in July. Good. This should arrive in August. Well, when all those shipping delays happened, I wasn't getting my June shipment. I didn't get my July shipment. Didn't get my August shipment. I'd get it all in September for like all 3 months. And then now I have this ginormous bill that I now have to pay 30, 60, 90 days later. And if you're already behind, that just compounds this, and it just compounds.
And not only that, but when you're talking about textiles and fabrics that are seasonal,
yes,
the stuff you needed in June, you don't need in September.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I ran into that as well. So, I mean, it was a constant, you felt like the gerbil in the cage on the Ferris wheel running, and you can never run to catch up. And meanwhile, you can't pay your bills. So one of the things that, I mean, it just got out of control for me money-wise and financially. I mean, to the point where, you know, I have, and at times have considered bankruptcy for the business, not for me personally, but for the business.
Right.
Just to get somewhere. And so, you know, that story may still get written. Who knows? I hope not. But, you know, my point is this, had I been on a cash only basis, that would have never happened, because the vendors would have called me and said, I have $5,000 I'm ready to ship to you. You need to pay for it before we ship it. And my answer to them would have been, well, Merry Christmas, you get to keep it, because, you know, I wouldn't have had $5,000. But because I was on terms and they were not a credit threshold, they were just terms, they shipped it. And so then I'm on the hook to have to pay for it. Now I could have sent it back, but I would have had, some places you have to pay a restocking fee, and some of it is half to 3/4 of what it costs you to pay for it. So you might as well sell it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it depends. So let's talk what the turning point. So you shared that. So the business is struggling in 2022. You survive the pandemic. You get through all that. But late last year, you learned about a financial model called Profit First.
I did.
I've heard of this, but I've never.
So let me share
really
about Profit First and the journey of it. So the journey of it's actually really funny. About a year and a half to 2 years ago, I went on a retreat with some friends of mine, and somebody had said, hey, you might want to check out this book, because they knew I was struggling. And I just kind of blew them off. And then the CPA company that I ended up going with and currently use, he is what is called a Profit First accountant, and he got my name through some marketing tool that he did, and he actually mailed me the book at no cost. And I finally did get it and read it, and I was like blown away by it. And of course, for me, I did it on Audible, but I was blown away by it. So what Profit?
The name of the book is Profit First?
Book name is called Profit First. Okay, so you can go to Amazon and you can buy it and get it shipped to you. It's available.
We'll put a link
Audible.
in the show notes.
Huh? You'll put it in the show notes?
We'll put a link in the show notes.
It is also available on Audible to listen to. It's a very good book. The guy who wrote it is very personable, tells a lot of stories about his journey. But the model of it is it's a cash basis only, but it's cash basis in a different way. There's buckets. So just the same way in your home, if you get your paycheck and you divvy out, okay, well, I have my paycheck and I'm going to put this much to the mortgage, this much to groceries, this much to gas, this much to out to eat. It's the same model, but only he's applied it to the business. So with your income that comes into your business, how much of that goes to your operating expenses? How much of that goes to your cost of goods sold? How much of that goes to your taxes and your tax burden? Because as self-employed, business owner, you do have a tax burden, and you need to be sure you're setting aside money to pay your taxes. Okay. How much money sets aside for, emergency. And then, what basically, and then you have a profit bucket. Okay. So the last bucket is your profit. And so the way this works is you get, say, $1,000 in your income, and then, say 25% goes to operating and this percent, and it divvies it out, and it goes into those separate accounts. So when you open up your bank portal, your online bank portal, instead of having just a bank checking account and a bank savings account, you may have 6 or 7 different bank checking accounts. And so when you divvy out your money each week or each month or every 2 weeks, how often you do it, when you divvy out your money, if it's in the operating account, then that's all it gets used for is your operating expenses. If it's in your inventory, your cost of goods sold account or your inventory purchases account, that's all it's able to be used for. So in my case, if I would have used this model from day one, when I would have gotten the phone call of, hey, I've got this shipment for you, you need to pay for it, I could have looked at my cost of goods sold bank account and said, well, I can't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Instead of it getting sent to me on terms.
Right.
It's doing this to where you're paying for it all in cash. So here's the big thing that I, tell people. One is if you have the ability to pay for it yourself and build your own capital, be very careful in doing that. Talk with your financial advisor, talk with your money, your money person, whoever that is, and really understand the implications of doing that. Okay. Just don't willy-nilly do it. The other thing is set up and do a cash only model. Okay. Because in my case, with what happened with COVID, I ended up growing my business quite substantially during COVID because everybody was locked up and they had nothing better to do other than to sew. So I was making money left and shop. And so I was doing really good through COVID. What killed me was after COVID, and we had an economic downturn, and the gas is now paying $4 and $5 a gallon when this all first started. Mm-hmm. Meat prices are ridiculous. Food prices are ridiculous. I said,
everything goes up.
Before the podcast, how before we went live, is that my husband and I, it's just the two of us, we can go out and get a cheeseburger. I mean, a bloomin' cheeseburger and fries, and it's $50. And you're thinking, what did I get? And it's ridiculous, the price. And in my business, it is a disposable income business, and it's primarily geared to older people. Okay. So when older people who are Social Security and retirement dependent,
fixed income,
and they see that decrease, that strain on their income, they're not going to spend it on the fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You can't.
I
have older siblings and
mm-hmm.
on fixed incomes, and it's not that
they don't want to.
Right. Yeah.
They want to, they just can't.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And when eggs got to $6 a dozen, it just about did me in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was insane. And even this past June, I did a huge convention show for quilters where they all come together and look at quilts, and there's vendors there. And I vended at the show. And I was really surprised at the change I saw in 23 versus 21, because I was there the last time they did it, which was in 21. In 21, people were spending money hand over fist. Okay. In 23, a lot of people carried cash only. They only carried cash, and when their cash ran out, they were done. Mm-hmm. They didn't pull out their credit cards. So that was one of the big eye openers. The second big eye opener is what they were spending on. If it was anything over $100, they paused.
Mm-hmm.
Because, they only brought so much money to spend at the show. And if it's over $100, that may be all they came to spend.
Right.
So then they have.
And while you were there and you're talking to all the other vendors, was there a consensus?
Yes.
So it's like we didn't what's the word? just pick on Christy.
No,
We didn't
no.
just pick on Cottage Grove. This is
No.
across
It's a cost thing. In fact, I actually talked to the vendor chair at that particular show, and she said, some of the vendors have complained, and I said, well, everybody needs to open their eyes up. 23 is a lot different financial market than it was in 21. It cost a lot more money. I mean, just to put it in perspective, okay, my husband and I are celebrating our anniversary this weekend. I went to go try to find us a hotel room to stay at in St. Louis. $300 to $500 for a night. Now, granted, these were nicer hotels.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the Ritz-Carlton. Okay. We're talking like this is the Westin Hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There
is a Ritz in St. Louis.
There is. We're not staying at it.
It's really nice. It's really nice.
Holiday Inn, okay? That's where we're staying. I'm like, I can't, even though it's a special occasion, I can't justify in my mind spending $500 for a hotel room.
Right,
and that's what we're
not in this climate, this economic climate.
And that's what we're faced with, all of us. So I explained that to the vendor chair. I said, look at the climate, look at how people are doing financially. Look at how much they're paying for gas. Look at how much they're paying to go out to eat. They're not going to be able to spend as much money as they used to on fabric. And then here's the kicker in my lane of a business. Quilters have been planning for the end of the world since they started. And they have these things that's called stashes. And they just go and buy fabric when it's on sale, and they don't know what they're going to use it for, but it was on sale. So they have it then because it's on sale. And so they have built up like rooms of fabric. So
my aunt had shelves lining her living room
with fabric,
full of bolts of fabric. She was a full-time quilter, and just amazing.
And that's what they do. So now that we've reached the point that it's expensive,
and it's the end of the world, by the way.
End of the world. They've been planning for this for 20 years, so they're good.
Right.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. And the things they might need are the little things, the sundry type.
Yeah, the sundry type things. So then for me, that makes it even harder. And in the fabric industry, the prices have gone up dramatically. When my business started, fabric I was selling by the yard was $11.99 a yard. At this point, I sell it at $13.99 a yard brand new. In 3 years, it's a $2 increase.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Where along, that is.
That is
where along the journey did you try to apply for the loan?
Okay, so
small business.
The small business loan. Let me talk about a small business loan. So applying for a small business.
And can we issue a disclaimer? We are not dissing the SBA.
Yeah.
We're not dissing
No. The
SBA. This is.
Yeah, the Small Business Administration is great. But I will tell you, it's like, okay, I have worked in the defense industry for 20 plus years. I understand working in the government. The SBA is like any other government entity. Okay?
Right.
There's a lot to get through. Okay.
Yeah.
And during 2020 to 2022, all they were focused on was COVID. Okay. So, and also getting information out of the SBA can be a challenge. And it's not dissing the SBA. I'm just being upfront and honest. Yeah. Getting information can be a challenge. So when I first started this back in 2016, one of my first trips was to the Small Business Administration. I went to downtown St. Louis to the headquarters of the Small Business Administration in St. Louis to ask them information on how to get, funding for a loan, how to and not to be horrible, but I really felt like the gentleman I spoke to, which was more mature, basically thought, well, isn't that a cute idea, honey?
Oh, God.
So that's what I felt like when I left. And I thought, well, screw you.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't think that's an SBA representative thing.
It was just that experience, and it wasn't anything related to the SBA. So then, fast forward. when did I decide I needed an SBA loan? A couple of years ago. And I just kept trying to get through to get an SBA loan, just kept beating on it. And, I'd get these advertisements of, we can get you an SBA loan in 24 to 48 hours. Okay, first off, no, that doesn't how it works. No, ask me how I know that. So, it's an arduous process to get an SBA loan. So I'm going to take some of the mystery out of it. First off, you don't go to the SBA administration to get an SBA loan. The SBA administration is there to provide guidance, to provide information, to provide things like a mentor, maybe, if you can get that engagement with them. They have workshops, on how to run a business. They have different statistics and background information that comes in handy. That's what you get from the SBA if you're going to the SBA office. Okay. When you are looking for an SBA specific loan, you can get an SBA specific loan for even buying a building. Little did I know that. I did not know that. I know that now. Okay. But you can get an SBA loan for buying merchandise. You can get an SBA loan for buying capital equipment. Like if you need.
So how do you get it? You go to the bank?
You go to a bank. You go to your local bank. Now, here's the kicker. You have to pick the right bank. Okay. You have to find a bank, and you need to interview your bank, and you need to be able to look through the BS. I just don't know how else to say it. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be crash, but you have to look through it and get it right. Because, for example, I went to my local hometown, small town bank, and I wanted them to help me get an SBA loan when I finally figured it out. They couldn't get there from here, even though they told me, oh yeah, we do it all the time. When I started the process, I found out quickly they couldn't get there from here. So you have to find a bank that knows what they're doing with the SBA. Specifically, find a bank that actually has an SBA department, that's all they do, that they have a group of employees that all
That's a great tip.
Is SBA loans. That's it. Okay. And it doesn't have to be your bank. If your bank is the local small town, bank, great. Find a bigger one. Okay.
So does it have to happen in person? Can you do this online?
You can do it online.
Yeah. So the world's your oyster kind of thing.
The world's your oyster. They need to be able to function in your state because there's state ramifications. Some states have different requirements. But yeah, you can definitely do that and do different types of stuff, with the SBA. I did find a bank in Missouri. I think there's enough of them out there that you can find one in your state, but I did find a bank in Missouri that would work with me. And once I made that right connection, and a lot of things we learn as business owners is networking. And I actually found that information out through a friend of mine who's a realtor whose wife bought a building through the SBA. And he said, oh, well, my wife used da-da-da bank. And I said, okay, I'm giving them a call. So, and I did. But the problem with me is and I used the SBA loan to pay off all of the vendor debt that I had, which I needed to do because it was ugly. It still is ugly. There's no other way to put it. It's still ugly. But the bottom line is I didn't get it soon enough, and I didn't ask for enough. Okay. I asked for the bare minimum that I needed, and I didn't get through all the red tape soon enough. Okay. So there's a couple things, even though I had this hot mess, this ginormous hot mess, I needed to have asked for more money from the SBA than I did to help balance the shakeout. And I needed it a lot sooner than I got it, because by the time I got it, the ship was, 2/3 underwater. It just bandaged the hull for a little bit, and that's fine. The biggest lesson that for me is doing the profit first. And I would recommend anybody who's in business, finding themselves a profit first certified CPA, because see, a CPA is going to know more than just your standard bookkeeper, especially when it comes to the tax implications.
Yes.
But I would definitely find one that is strictly given by profit first. And one of the things I like to tell people is, as a business owner, you need to learn how to hire smart people to help you. I am not a marketing person. That's why I hired Angelique, because it's not me. Okay.
Yeah.
We're not good at that department. I can do a lot of things. That's not my department. I can do a lot of things money wise, but I was proving that I while I can manage my household income and make great financial decisions, I wasn't doing great financial decisions with running my business. So I needed to hire somebody that is who they were, and needed someone who was doing this profit first model. And I hired, it's called Curtis Accounting Solutions, and they're a great group. And that's all they do is CPA.
And they're in Missouri?
No, they're out of Tennessee.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is it again? Curtis?
Curtis Accounting Solutions. And again,
Thank you.
It's hiring the right people. And because of the digital world we live in, they can be from anywhere, as long as they know the tax implications for your state, you're okay.
I think that's one positive thing that came out of COVID.
It really did. People learned how to
it really broke some barriers and thinking around not just business, but now
right.
I think especially the older generation, they've gotten way more comfortable with tech.
They have,
because that was the only way to connect.
That was. So as far as the business goes, SBA loan, once I made the right connection to the right bank, plan for 6 months before you get funded. Okay, 6 months. Now, they were able to do it for me in about 2.5. And the reason why is because I was on them like white on rice.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I needed the money. I mean, I hate to sound ugly, but I needed the money, honey. So we won this, a lot. And so, it was huge, but 6 months is what I would plan for. Yeah. And it's not an easy process.
Business isn't easy.
No.
I think that running like you said, I think that's such an important point, that and the taking your hobby and making it a business. Well, now your hobby's not any fun anymore. Yes. The other aspect is making a business out of something just because you're good at it. I'm really good at some things, but I don't want to do it all day.
No.
And falling into that trap of, but you're so good at it.
Yeah.
And then, but you're miserable.
Yeah. So to your point, this is very important. I love to cook. My father-in-law said to me one time,
"You're a good cook too.
Why don't you open up a restaurant? You'd have a great restaurant." And I looked at him and I said, I would work more than I ever do now for a lot less money, and I wouldn't like it as much.
So I want to wrap up by going full circle. So where are you at right now? What are you going to be doing soon?
So for me, life has changed. Life has changed in a lot of ways. So my husband retired from his day job. I became a nervous ninny because I had to pay groceries and car payments and I wasn't making any money. And so I was able to go back to work full time and back in the defense industry. And, come to find out, I love it. I love doing that kind of work. I love being involved in that. It's something I feel really passionate about. And so I went back to work in the defense industry, and it's a great thing for me. Where am I at from a business standpoint? So as a business standpoint, we're in the process of shutting it down, and here's, I guess, the best message of all is, if you're really unhappy doing it, and I'm going to tell you, for 3.5 years, the part of the story I haven't shared yet, and I'll just give a tip of the iceberg, is the mental side of it. I was miserable and I was unhappy and I was hateful to my husband, and it was just not a good place to be. And anyway, in all of that, I lost so much of it. It became to the point of, I need to walk away from this. And so I'm in the process of shutting it down, and we're going to be doing a big sellout on the 20th of July. And then
Okay.
after that, we'll see how much I sell.
Yeah.
And then we'll have to
Yeah.
figure out if I've raised enough money to cover my bills. I've rented out the storefront of our building to a great company that's doing great things, and they want to buy my building. So as soon as they can get their funds together to buy the building, I'm sold, and I will have had enough equity in my building because the all of the value of
All
property
the improvements.
has
But it was
The
a good part
apartment
of
that you
COVID
guys,
too, was the value went up in
everything
equity.
shot up in the value. So
yeah, because everybody was home
yeah,
remodeling. But you guys put a state of the
we
art
have
apartment above that storefront, and it's
we
gorgeous.
did.
I had the pleasure of visiting last year, and it was,
It's
you had
gorgeous.
just kind of wrapped it up.
Yeah. So once we sell our building, I'll be able to pay off all the debt I owe, and then I'm done. I'll take a break and get back to why I love doing what I love. And then
Yeah.
at that point, I'll go back and I'll do a little bit here and there, and I'll do it. Yeah, I'll still have a business because there's some great benefits tax-wise of having a business license.
Absolutely.
So, I'll still do that part, but it is going to be small scale back to what I started at doing because
Do you want to give a shout out to the business that's renting your building?
Sure. It's called Back to Play. They are in DeSoto, Missouri, and what they do is they have an indoor playground for children, and they do special events like music therapy for kids. They even will have, if a counselor needs to rent a space for special needs kids to come in and do play therapy, they can do that there. It's a really great little setup.
Is the coffee shop still in the block?
It's
down?
three blocks down. Yeah, we have a coffee shop in our town that's 3 blocks.
So cute. If you guys are in the area, if you're
DeSoto,
in Missouri, oh my gosh, it's such a cute little country town.
Added an ice cream parlor.
Aww.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well,
yeah. So especially if you've got kids, sounds like a great opportunity.
It's a great thing they're doing, and it's really kind of cool. And they have like little, they have an art table that they can do finger paints, and just getting kids off of tablets, off of computers, and playing.
Tactile play.
Yeah.
It's important.
We
for
need a lot of those. That's
when
great. That it sounds like that building would be perfect for stuff like that. So
neat. Awesome. Well, thank you for the recap. And of course, we wish you all the best. We'll drop all of the Cottage Grove Quilt Company socials and all that stuff so you can connect and catch that sale on the 20th.
Yeah, and still connect. I mean, even though things are changing, and I'm relocating and all that, still connect. We are, as we're remodeling our house, we are putting YouTube videos up on how our home remodel is going. So you can watch my husband and I work in the sweltering heat of South Louisiana, putting in a new redoing.
Yeah, what part of Louisiana?
We are in I love saying this, Tangiapoa Parish. And it's
Tangiapoa Parish, and that's near what?
It's an hour. It's an hour north of New Orleans, and we're west of Hammond. Okay. We're west of Hammond, Louisiana.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah. And what a gorgeous area. I love
it. Is
Nolens.
It is.
I love Nolens.
I love it too, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I love out there.
What was the other thing I was going to mention? I don't know, but. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
I just we've gone a little long today, but I think that we've covered a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how many people would be willing to come on, a podcast and say, this is how I failed.
Mm-hmm.
But failure's feedback. It's not a personal affront. It isn't a personal reflection. It is, hey, this is what I learned. I want to share this, experience with you so you can learn from my mistakes.
Yeah. And that's what we were about. Like just talking about this, like we see all those shiny things and it was like, great, they're successful. But again, we don't know the ugliness that's gone on in their world behind the scenes. I know what's gone on behind the scenes in my world in 3 years. but
And not ugly as in bad,
Right.
but ugly as in hard.
Right.
Ugly and hard. And
Yeah.
this has been a hard journey, but I will say in the culture that we live in, everything is sanitized for Instagram, Pinterest, and Facebook.
Yeah.
They don't see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And, nobody has seen the hours that, I have just been miserable. And my husband's been like, you can't do this anymore. And you just don't, people don't see that. And I think it's important to share those things, because when we only see the inputs of Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest, and we have these challenges in life, we think there's something wrong with us, and it messes with our mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And those are tough conversations. I mean, you're married, you have somebody else that you also are in this with, or is in it with you. Even my husband, where he's really wonderful, but there's those moments. We just replaced our water heater this weekend, and there was a moment in that, like, it's summertime. Do we need hot water? That was the conversation when we found out the cost, right? And luckily they worked with us, so we're not going to be without hot water this summer. But it was one of those moments where it's like, is it even freaking necessary at this moment? Because at, this cost with everything else, and looking at him, who right now is the primary support while we build, it's those challenges where you're like, and he doesn't have a problem saying, hey, look, something's got to give. But it's those moments, because he wants to give me that opportunity in his heart. He loves that. But he's also only one person.
The reality.
Of it.
He's like, I really support
Yeah.
you. And I don't want you to not
And-
think it. So those are tough conversations in
They are
marriage, business and things.
Yeah. And you married people are very fortunate that, while you're building a business, you have this partner that's helping support you, not just financially, but emotionally, and, all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have, and now you see, he's retired, and now it's your turn to support him to some extent, right? By going back to work and being really, really happy about that, because you're ready to move on from this hard thing to a thing that now looks easier.
And what's interesting is for me, what I do in my day job is very easy for me, and it comes very natural to me. Whereas before it was really a growth, of my capabilities. So it's, as I say, it's almost like going on vacation.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying my job's hard and not hard and doesn't have its moments, but sure.
Right.
Everybody does. But at the same token, it's been a welcome relief. And to be honest, I think the biggest relief of all is not the burden that I've carried for so long, of the weight of everything. Right now I'm trying to make sure I generate enough income in my bank account to float me for several months while this next organization figures out how they purchase our building. And hopefully that all comes together the way it's supposed to. We're making lots of changes and cutting back services and cutting back requirements to where it's just, we are already bare bones, but now the bones are getting picked. So it's making those choices and pulling it all back, but it's what you got to do for your own sake.
And I think that it's awesome that you come away from this being able to share your story and help other people, not just women, but people.
My desire is that in sharing this, I want everybody to learn from this, and things not to do and managing things differently.
Yeah. And I know when we were working together, you would write a blog each month, and that was sometimes a challenge for you. And whether right for the time, for the energy to be able to you have to, when you're writing, you have to want to write.
Yes.
It's really hard to force yourself to write good stuff. So I hope that you find joy in writing and you're able to write your story, because I think you have a good story to share. I think you have a great story to share.
Yeah.
I think it'd be wonderful. And it
Thank
needs to be heard. Again, not everything is always
Yeah.
roses. There is a real behind the scenes curtain that needs to get pulled back and give you a good view.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to share. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank
You're
you.
very welcome. So Laura, what are we doing next?
So we will make sure there's information or way to contact for the sale that you're having and the closing out of things and stuff. So we really go or be there, be a part of it, because all of that is just still really important. So make sure.
Normally we have the current guest introduce the next guest, but I forgot to send you
It's okay. You can
the
go
little
ahead.
blurb. So I'll go ahead and do it. Next week's guest is Rachel Radway. She's a certified professional coach, mentor, and consultant who helps experienced and emerging women leaders find clarity, find their voice, solve problems, and navigate change. Areas she specializes in currently, and I say that as a caveat, include communication, leadership, self-care, preventing burnout, building a safe, inclusive organizational culture, where individuals and teams can thrive. She strongly believes that leadership isn't about your title. It's about the way you get others to align with you and work towards a shared vision or goal, regardless of the size of the organization or community. Rachel thrives on change. She has lived in 9 countries, 8 US states, and countless cities and towns, traveled extensively. She's had several careers in a range of roles in tech startups, global Fortune 500s, and national nonprofits across a range of industries. She served as a chair of a nonprofit board. She's had small businesses of her own. A common thread has been for her helping people communicate across functions and cultures. She loves language of all kinds and is a published writer and editor. And we are so excited to share Rachel's powerful story. She is going to touch on that one mistake that she still regrets. But she's going to talk about so much more than that. But it's always a good hook, right? Look, oh, what's that one thing? But she's actually in transition right now too, and she's going to talk about that when she comes on. But Christy, you're in a huge transition, right? She's going into a huge transition. I've been going through a freaking metamorphosis the past year, and I feel like the next 2 or 3 years are going to continue that. In 2 to 3 years, I'll be the bionic woman. We're going to replace some body parts. And I just feel like, as women, I think this is something that we just do well. And I read some statistics. I used to want to be a CPA, and I loved numbers, but being a CPA is not about loving numbers. But one of the statistics that I ran into so many moons ago, this was probably in the 90s, was that more women who invest like stockbrokers, the women perform better. And they were like, why are women doing better than men? Right. And they looked at it, and the one thing that they did better was they cut their losses sooner. So when a fund or an investment stopped performing as anticipated or didn't in a certain amount of time, like it should have started bringing me some return, and it's not, they were like, all right, moving on, sell that. What's next? Whereas their male counterparts during this particular study didn't do that. They were like, no, they were more stubborn. They were more prideful, I think, and less willing to cut their losses. So I think as a gender, as women, we are better at doing that. We're better at cutting our losses and going, okay, this isn't working for me. It's time to move on. And I think it's just a cultural thing that men are told, this is what you do. This is what's expected of you. And they don't think that they have that flexibility, that they'll be judged by other people for not being consistent, solid, dependable, all those things.
Yep.
Well, and
So,
if it's still performing a little bit, it's not a failure. If you leave it, then it's the failure side of it. I think that is what it's seen. So it's just like, I'll just continue to push harder, it'll get better.
that perception. Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's not a failure. You know, and even if it is, it's a lesson. Who, you know,
And again,
not a-
failure
but yeah,
is it's not a personal attack. It's feedback.
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
So awesome. Well, thank you, Christy,
You're
once
welcome.
again
Thank you.
for being here and just being just wonderful. I love you.
Aw,
We the only announcement we have this week is sign up for the newsletter. We're sending out our weekly sneak peeks for the upcoming guests, and we're going to start sending out that monthly recap very shortly. So get in on that list so you can get those monthly recaps. This is kind of a bit of a what's the word? A sneak peek at what's coming down the road for the podcast. So be sure you get in there. I can't believe we went over an hour. We never go over an hour. This is great.
Yeah,
And it's just been boom, boom, boom.
right.
good.
Absolutely.
You're a fantastic podcast guest, Christy.
Well,
so
thank you.
market that.
Right.
Leverage that.
I'll be a podcast guest.
I can tell she's done speaking before because she's on her toes.
Oh gosh, yeah. I've been speaking in public for years.
Yeah.
Years.
Yeah, same.
Love it.
So we will see you guys next week. Same bat channel, same bat time.
Yep.
Have a, Christy, good luck to you and all the moving and everything that you're doing right now. Our thoughts are with you.
Well,
and
thank you.
You can reach out if you need anything.
Absolutely, and you the same way, darling.
Okay.
All
Right.
All right.
right, everyone.
We'll see you
Thank
guys
you.
next